Today I had to seek some, we'll call guidance from a fellow writer here in New Hampshire. This gentleman has actually self-published a few of their own stories before, and today was more or less me kind of reaching out to them and really having them just assist me with the formatting of this book. I've decided to start with formatting the ebook version first as opposed to the print version, simply because the ebook version seems a bit more of like a stripped down process. It seems a little bit more simple. It's a little bit harder to mess up than the print version is going to be. And so today was just kind of going through and picking the gentleman's brain, going through different ways of the process, and really just going over how to get that done. Had plenty of tips, plenty of advice for me, which was awesome. But one of the things that happens whenever I meet up with this person is that inevitably our conversations might be maybe 45 minutes to like an hour of actual productive conversation, and then we have about 2 or 3 hours of just the two of us discussing whatever. Our conversations tend to be a bit like the conversations Ian Rogers and I have on this channel here, where we talk about different writing aspects and all that, all the way to discussing just general, things about life. But during the conversation today, he had asked me something that was interesting, which was, so you're like in your 30s now. So let me ask you, are you at the point now where you're not looking forward to writing every day? And I didn't quite know what he meant at first, because I dodged plenty of writing sessions back in my 20s. I mean, everything from not just obviously the writer's slump that I had a couple years ago, that kind of led to me creating this channel, but like plenty of periods of time where I was missing days, took weeks off, fell out of the habit and all that. There was tons of times, and so I didn't quite understand what he meant. And he basically had said people that are youthful and young tend to enjoy writing more than when you get older, and it becomes more of a hassle, or it's often viewed as a hassle. He was getting to the point of when you're young and you don't necessarily know a lot about your limitations, you don't know a lot about your lack of skill and your lack of knowledge. When you're in your teens and your 20s and all that stuff, writing is a very kind of magical thing. It's very ambitious. You get up and you start writing and you just put everything on the page, and there's no concern for, in his mind, there's no concern for aspects of getting the facts of the story correct. There's no concern for avoiding cliches. None of the self-consciousness that comes with making good stories. None of the conventions that you need to follow ever really occur to you when you're young, especially when you're very, very inexperienced. You just get up every day because you love to write, and you just start putting words to the page, and it's absolutely terrible. And you kind of, I think, know that, but you also think, well, I've read other books that aren't very good, and so maybe mine has a shot, and I'm really enjoying it, and you just keep going. And as time goes on, you improve, and that's when the self-consciousness comes in. I think that's when the fear comes in, because you're more aware of what you didn't know before. There's a lot of power in ignorance. The ignorance really is bliss when you're a young writer. There are things that you don't know that you do not know, and when you're unaware of that, it's a very, very, very strong feeling. And this is true for any art, but especially with writing, it's so powerful, because you think you have the false confidence of thinking that you do know everything, or that nothing else matters but just sitting at the computer and typing away, and you think somehow your work will one day get discovered. And it's only through time that you realize the things that you didn't know before, and you become aware of it, and you become self-conscious, because it's so many things to really be considerate of with these stories, and you become so worried. And God, it just eventually you come out the other end of it. I think, especially maybe me now, where like a lot of those early things I had to worry about are just kind of automatic things now that you look for, automatic things that you're just aware of, and that you kind of avoid out of a sense of habit. But so much of it, is challenging. So much of it is a hassle. It's just a mental hassle. I'd love to be able just to get to the computer every day and type, and I think writing every day would be way easier if I did that with just reckless abandon and not concern myself with anything else. And there's a power in that, and you can, especially in the self-publishing realm, you can get away with that. You can do that if you don't want to worry about avoiding cliches, about writing with direct language, about concerning yourself with every single sentence and making sure that it works, and making sure that your work, when it's read aloud, sounds correct, and worried about syntax and the sort of like the cadence of your words. If you don't care about that, self-publishing is nice because you can just get it done and get it out there. You're essentially becoming a sort of Tommy Wiseau or like a Neil Breen, for those that maybe know films and movies. Two very well-known producers and directors. Very well-regarded, I imagine probably well-regarded filmmakers amongst those that enjoy schlock. But they did it with movies. Both gentlemen did it with movies, and they became very famous, potentially more famous than I'll ever become. Not for maybe the thing they hoped to be. I don't know how much either gentleman ever really cared when it came to their movies. I don't know how much they cared about making these things like masterpieces, but they are. I mean, especially with Neil Breen. I mean, he's putting out movies, it seems, every couple of years, knowing that they're bad, and just self-financing his films because he enjoys them, because he likes it. It's very satisfying for him. There's an element of, yes, that is very self-aggrandizing. There's an element of creating art just to please yourself and no one else that I think can be a bit immature at times. But it's worked, and this is your life. This is your direction here. You can make this process and make your writing career whatever you want it to be, really. So that's an element of it. It is. And you can do the same thing with writing. You could put those books out, not care, maybe have people read them that really like your work. Maybe have a bunch of people that read it because, hey, ironically, I think it's just absolutely hilarious, this book. Oh my God, it's so bad. It's entertaining. And become very well known for it. And that's nothing to scoff at. To be well regarded for work and to be, to have work that's enjoyed because it's so bad, that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. In fact, I think there are people that would trade that off for obscurity. If it was obscurity or being known for the guy who makes bad books, but are just so entertaining they're bad, I'd be curious to see how many people would trade it off, and I think there'd be a lot of people that would. You're entertaining people. You're giving people a sort of spark of joy or a spark of entertainment in a life that may be very, very miserable. You're helping people kind of alleviate themselves from care and concern for a while, which is all our books ever really do. They can teach, and they can inspire, and they can push, and they can project a message, maybe. Some can put out morals, I guess. But at the end of the day, you are entertaining. You're giving people a chance to sort of step away from their chaotic lives for a bit. Wow. Yeah, I didn't think I was going to talk about Neil Breen or Tommy Wiseau here, I guess, in this video, but I guess, all right, works. But yeah, the more you go on, the further you go in this process, the more, if you're going to take it seriously, the more you need to be aware. The more you need to be aware of what you don't know, and you need to be avoiding the mistakes that you keep repeating. It's a feedback mechanism. It's a thing where you make this mistake, someone points it out, you recognize it in your work, and you don't repeat it. That's the difference between someone who's looking to get traditionally published and someone that's looking to get recognized and someone that's not. That's the difference. You find out what you're doing wrong and you avoid making that mistake. And unfortunately, it comes with time, and in this business, it's very, very hard to get that feedback. That's why people go for MFAs, right? No agent who rejects who's ever going to tell you why they rejected it. No, short story magazine is ever going to tell you why they rejected one of your stories. You got to kind of reread your work and figure it out for yourself, and kind of intuit it. And there are people, critique partners, professors, teachers that can help you along the way, but that's really, at the end of the day, it's going to be on you. And if you can't make those corrections, if you can't recognize what you're doing wrong or recognize it and not be willing to make those changes, there's not many other paths unless you want to go down the self-published path and not care what anyone thinks of the work.